Good evening, everyone. Time for episode 13 of Kerr's Rage, part 1 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga by me. Okay, episode 13 will begin on page 151, the chapter titled Grog, Anvilhead. Grog's stables were not quite as well kept as Longbeard's, but they came with a complete blacksmith shop, and his horseshoes were among the strongest and best crafted in all of Safe Haven. It was a fact that gave Grog a strong sense of pride, even by Anvilhead standards. He had only one apprentice, a young human boy whose capacity for work was almost dwarven. Without the boy, his horses would probably have gone unfed and ungroomed more often than not, because he knew little about horses save how best to shoe them. This was a personal flaw that he would readily admit to, but he more than made up for it with his ability to shape metals into any form that he wished. His arms and armor were among the best in the realm, and as his craft grew, so did his fame. He had himself been a famous adventurer and faithful follower of the previous Lord Cherrick, but it had been many years since he last sought out adventure in faraway lands. Elrin had told him that a company of heroes would soon come to see him, and somehow he had known that today would be the day. Carmen rode toward the sounds of hammering and forge bellows. Longbeard had told her something of Grog's legendary skill, and she expected to find him hard at work. The steady clang of hammer on steel confirmed her theory. Dismounting, they tied their horses to the hitching post outside the main corral and approached the doors to the smithy. They were all prepared to meet Grog Anvilhead, but none of them were prepared to meet the Grog Anvilhead. Standing behind a large and battered-looking anvil was the most massively built dwarf that she'd ever seen. Not quite as tall as Kerr, he was nevertheless half again as wide. His massive arms wielded the tools of his trade with effortless grace. His beard showed no hint of gray, although much of it was curled from the heat of the forge. He appeared considerably older than Kerr, but it was difficult for any Norn dwarf to tell when a dwarf was perhaps only middle-aged or even old. Some day she would ask Kerr about it. Grog was busy shaping a human-sized breastplate to specifications he seemed to have stored in his mind. Seeing customers approaching, he laid down his work and moved towards the awestruck female, watching him from the half-open barn doors of his shop. "Anything I can do for you, lassie," he said, wiping his soot-blackened hands upon his apron. "Are you Mr. Anvilhead?" she asked uncertainly. "Depends on who's asking, but that's what people call me. I have a message for you from Elrin von Mathers. We travel north, upon the Anvil of Fire." "Then we must waste no more time. Bring on your friends and close the doors." Once inside, they clustered around the blackened smith. Grog told them that he knew about their mission and how he would help them. The Red Orcs have been massing all along the northern borderlands. Nordtown village will soon be under siege. Baron Dutchings has sent messengers to Lord Cherrick for reinforcements, but he feels that they'll be too late. The Baron's own forces have already been sorely put to the test, repelling smaller raids on the outlying farms. They believe that the Orcs are searching for something, although they have taken many slaves, as they once did in the past Red Orcan wars. You've been hired to find out just what it is that they seek, and if possible, to see who is behind the Orcs' campaign. The Orcs have kept to themselves for over a century, and it is rumored that several of their tribes have joined together to form a great force. Their raids and tactics seem better planned than ever before. You must waste no time in reaching Nordtown. For it is there that the Orcs seem to be planning their greatest assault. I pray that the king's reinforcements can reach them in time. "We will need provisions for many days," Kalor said, "and a few pack horses to carry them." "The weather will turn soon," Kerr said. "We could use canvas for tents, strong rope, candles, warm skins, and some good whale oil lanterns as well." "All that I have," Grog said, "I'll provide you with. Von Mathers has left several items here with me to aid you in your quest. Follow me to the storage room out back. Leading them through his smoky shop, he opened a padlocked door at its far end and led them into a somewhat dusty but completely packed storage room. Dragging a heavy chest from beneath a crowded shelf, he opened it to reveal several precious items. The first thing that he drew forth was wrapped in a blanket of soft rabbit's fur. Within it lay a clear crystal globe of exquisite workmanship. At its center, a small cloud seemed to shift and spin as the globe was moved. A scrying crystal. The wizard claims that one of you possessed the skills to use it. A magician named Kalor. With it, you will be able to communicate with us in times of need. I'm Kalor, and I'm familiar with crystal use, although I've never tried. It's rare to see a gnome with the gift of wizardry, Grog said as he handed Kalor the fur-enshrouded crystal. Aldrich Swifthands of Waysboro taught me how to use the gift. I've heard little about him, but I don't doubt the wizard's judgment. Rummaging through the chest, Grog wrestled a rolled parchment free of several other items and handed it to Carmen. It's a map of the lands north of here. It's a little crude past Nordtown, but it shows the basic outline of the Ogrefang and Dragon's Ridge Mountains, as well as the Elven Kingdoms and Dreadmore Forest. And here's a map of the northern reaches that I drew. Safe Haven is beneath it. You see Nordtown Village is the northernmost town of Safe Haven under Lord Cherrick's control, and then north to where the Red Orcs are from. Okay. Filtering through some small, unimportant items, he drew forth several diminutive glass flasks with cork stoppers. Healing draughts. You'll probably need them. These are almost impossible to come by and for no small price. Care for them well, for they may well save your lives. From his shelves he pulled down several riding pouches and some large leather packs. Into them he placed many items coveted by anyone surviving in the wilds for long. Wool blankets and tarps of canvas, 3 oil lanterns with extra wicks, cooking utensils, cast iron skillets, as well as water skins and a full flask of the strongest dwarven ale for each of them. He supplied them all as completely as any of them could have done for themselves, and none of them could doubt his knowledge of survival. I'll shoe your mounts, provide you with what additional arms and armor you may desire. Von Mathers has hired a guide for you, as well, a Lyoselfar ranger by the name of Tarek Longstride. We don't need a guide who we've never met before, Kerr said. Longstride is one of the best trackers that I've ever seen, and he can follow orcs by their smell alone. I've worked with him in the past, and I can vouch for his skill. His running endurance is amazing. I've seen him maintain a horse's pace for several leagues without tiring. He is also an expert with both dagger and sword. Tarek Longstride is a character that was first created by my friend Joe Garside, who's unfortunately passed away. He was a great engineer who traveled the world and did amazing work for Intel. Great friend. We played D&D together for years and years, and Tarek Longstride was a character of his. We could use a knowledgeable guide, Carmen said. Our expertise lies in the Knoll Hills to the west, and our mission could easily take us farther west than any of us have ever ventured. Another thing about Tarek, Grog said. The orcs are his sworn enemy, and if there are any true rangers left in the realm, then Tarek is one of them. He may still be a little green around the edges, but he will guide you well, and his loyalty can be counted on. He hails from the Elven Kingdoms to the north, but he is the last of his father's blood. I believe that his lack of kin is what caused him to lose all fear of dying. When they had finished tending to a few last-minute things, Grog outfitted them with finely crafted weapons of war. He outfitted Darton and Leander with longbows matching their individual strengths and added fine quivers filled with arrows tipped with iron broadheads. He gave Kerr a new set of dwarven mail, which he grumbled about being of Anvilhead make, and certain to fail when put to the test. Lucky for him, Grog was above such jests from a young keg-porter whelp, and he gave him 2 well-balanced throwing axes and a brace of bolts for his crossbows anyway. To Carmen, he offered perhaps the greatest gift of all, a suit of fine mail over a leather tunic with metal plates fastened to it to protect the most vulnerable parts of her body, and a lightweight shield of great strength bearing the golden lion symbol of Lord Cherrick upon it. The whole suit was designed for a warrior on horseback, and it fit her as if it was made for her alone. I made this years ago for a female mercenary who was just about your size. She was killed in a barroom brawl, fighting against ruffians who stabbed her in the back. She never had a chance to wear the finished suit. I held on to it for sentimental reasons, I guess, but maybe I made it for you after all. Moradeus's wishes often manifest themselves in strange ways. In moments he had completed his adjustments of her armor's straps. Stepping back a step, he appraised his work. It truly was an amazing fit. It was heavier than what she was used to, but she was amazed at the freedom of movement that it gave her. How can I repay you for such a gift? Its fit and balance are superb. You honor me beyond my worth. Honor me by succeeding in your mission. The information that you send to the wizard will help the king form his battle plans. I fear that an invasion is coming. Looking into her eyes, he found a quality within them that spoke of great worthiness indeed. We'll succeed as long as Ilmatar watches over us. I know not of your god's ways, but surely he cannot help being pleased at that which you now wear, for a piece of Moradeus, the soul forger, lies there. Turning from her to hide his tears of pride and old memories, he strode off to the well to wash himself. I'll be right back, and then we'll all go to the Rogue's End for dinner. Hopefully, we'll find Tarek there. Rogue's End. Rogue's End often lived up to its name, but before dark it was usually safe enough. Located on the corner of Jacob's Trail and Doris Avenue, it was less than a mile from Grog's Blarney stables. The tavern was famous for its pot-bellied pig stew, and for that reason, the inn was quite an attraction at dinner time. It wasn't so much an inn as it was an eating and drinking establishment, although the proprietor maintained 5 rooms for rent in the rear of the building. One Alan Cunningman owned the inn, and he knew everyone who was anyone in Thievestown. Grog, it's been so long since last I saw you. Please introduce me to your friends. I don't think that we've ever met. Faithful followers of the king, he said with a bow. And what brings you all to the Rogue's End? They're fighters looking for mercenary work, with any of the merchant caravans traveling north of here. Although his answer was less than true, he knew that Alan would decipher more than enough from his words. It wouldn't profit them to advertise their mission. I've told them all about your famous pot-bellied pig stew, and we're all quite famished. Right this way, Mr. Anvilhead. I have 1 table left that we should be able to squeeze you all into. Keeping a white bar towel draped over his left forearm, he led them through the tavern with a waiter's professional air. Seating them all at a central table, he took their order. So that'll be 6 specials then, Mr. Anvilhead, and 6 flagons of ale as well. Within minutes their meal was served. 2 huge loaves of freshly baked bread and 6 bowls of stew were laid before them. The mugs of ale were true flagons, and the great volumes of brimming froth troubled Carmen. Remember, Grog whispered in her ear, you are mercenaries, and mercenaries drink. The entire party feasted. Grog, Kalor said casually, you seem to know the waiter very well. Do you eat here often? Only now and then, he answered while wiping his mouth on his sleeve. Ellen and I worked together many years ago. Oh, anything important? No. We were just partners in a couple of small endeavors. Wench, please bring me some more ale. Grog's redirection didn't escape him, but neither would he press the issue. Keeping a watchful eye, he realized that there were many customers here who were more than what they seemed. He was familiar with the secret coded language of thieves, and he recognized several of them in the dining room. None of them seemed to be interested in them, but it always paid to be alert in places like this one. Seated close by were all types of merchants, minor nobles, and wanderers. Several enormous humans dressed in animal skins sat at the bar. They appeared to be northern barbarians, although they might just be hunters selling their catch at the marketplace. Two cloaked figures sat in a corner booth, talking quietly with their faces hidden. A lone elf sat at a small table, dressed in studded leather attire. His face was framed by a mane of sandy blonde hair, and he kept a discreet watch about himself with eyes the color of polished steel. His chest was strangely broad for an elf, although many of the northern elves were said to be of heavier build than was common. At his side rested a slender longsword and two rapier-like daggers that weren't much shorter. A green riding cloak hung over the back of his chair, over which a great bow and a quiver of red-fletched arrows were slung. His high leather boots were well cared for but travel-worn, and all about him was an air of confidence. This must be the ranger that Grog spoke of, Kalor thought. Grog, he said with a slight, hidden gesture in the elf's direction, could you pass the bread, please? Of course, he said meaningfully. Perhaps, Carmen said, picking up on the course of events, we should finish packing for the merchant's caravan as soon as we finish with our meal. Sounds like a plan, Kalor replied as he swallowed a large mouthful of stew and chased it down with ale. The remainder of their meal passed swiftly, and their conversations were quiet and unrevealing. All of them could feel watchful eyes upon them, but from where or by whom could not be known. Okay, we'll stop here in the middle of page 159. And as always, remember to read Kur's Rage, Part 1 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga, followed by The Drums of Doom, Part 2 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga, also by me, and Part 3, which is the sequel, or a prequel to Kur's Rage, I should say, The Last Admiral, Part 3 of the Duaredheim Staff Saga, of course also by me. So remember, read the Duaredheim Staff Saga and the Ice Moon coming soon. Thank you for listening. Have a great night.